Welcome back to the Spirit, Mind and Soul podcast. Today I'm speaking with Megan, and Megan talks to me about living a life that others expected of her for so long and how that led her to feel very unfulfilled. She talks about becoming the person you want to be before actually being that person, and the power of gratitude in creating a life that you love. We also spoke about how she's leading a more holistic lifestyle now. She had her home birth about a year ago, and she talks about how you can create the life that you love too. I loved this conversation and how Megan embraces her authenticity, and I'd love if you could subscribe and you'll be notified when future episodes come out. Also, hit the like button if you enjoy this podcast episode. But for now, enjoy the episode with Megan. Hi, Megan. So thank you so much for agreeing to come on the podcast. I loved our chat that we had separately before, so I'm looking forward to going into more detail and hearing more about your life. You live a sort of alternative lifestyle that I love. I know you've got your lovely little baby in the background there, and that's so welcome here. So I would love to hear about life. I know obviously you were married before and a lot happened, obviously divorce, and can you tell me what life was like before marriage and the lead up to marriage? What happened? I'd love to hear that side of the story that we didn't get to talk about before.
Awesome. So I actually it was a 9 years ago today that I actually married my first husband. I've been divorced twice. So I I just I got married 9 years ago. I went and got a real estate license. I was working in real estate, and I just things were vastly different than where I am now today. Like this morning, for example, I woke up and I milked my goats, and I live in the middle of nowhere, and I sleep with, I sleep with my daughter at night. And 9 years ago, when I married my first husband, things I wanted to be here, but I didn't think I was really going to be here. And um, yeah, I'm really thankful for all that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I when I married I met and married my first husband, and then we divorced in it was, I think, a little 2.5 years. And I always like to say I make the same mistake twice, so that way, just to be sure. So then I jumped into another
Mhm.
relationship that was very similar than the first marriage. And I thought I had like solved my problems because of what I had like accomplished or what I was doing. But it was a life that was kind of based on like what I thought everybody else wanted from me versus what I wanted for myself. Um,
Mhm.
so fast forward to about um, I I ended up getting into, like I said, I was in the first marriage. I met and married my second husband, and I felt like I sort of woke up and was like, oh my god, like what have I done? Like I had done a ton of work
Mhm.
and really sacrificed and done a bunch of things, and I wasn't really happy where I was at. I wasn't happy with what was going, like it didn't feel fulfilling. Like I felt almost like a fraud, but I didn't really understand how it felt like a fraud because like I was always
Mhm.
authentic, but I just didn't really like where I was. So
Mhm.
I ended up separating and divorcing my second husband about 4 years ago. And that was a decision that sort of shocked a lot of people in my life because they didn't think I was going to do that. We made lots of money together. We had a house. We seemed to be very happy. Um, and then that sort of spiraled a long year of sort of like, kind of like getting back on my feet. But it was more, it was really tough, and I did end up quitting drinking, but that wasn't until March 2020 that I started
Mhm.
to do that. But it was sort of like I had to sort of become a person who quit drinking before I was a person who quit drinking. And by
Mhm.
that I mean I started implementing habits in October 2019. With the upcoming year 2020, I was like, I'm going to make this my year. Like I'm just this is I'm okay. I'm not I'm sort of living in the aftermath of the messes I've created, right, from before, and I
Mhm.
am going to, like, 2020 is going to be for real. So October 2019, I started writing in my journal every day, 5 things I'm grateful for, and then um, 10 goals. And one of the first ones was to quit smoking because I'd been a cigarette smoker for like 10 years, and I so then I think it was June, because my birthday's January 2nd. So January 3rd, 2020, because I still, you don't want to, why quit? I never do any resolutions on the
Yeah.
first days of the year
Yeah.
because, like, started after my birthday. Um, I quit smoking. And 3 months after that, I quit drinking. And a month after that, I met who's my husband now, who I'm so in love with. And um, we it's it feels like an entire universe away, because I am like a totally different person than I've been. Um, but
Mm-hmm.
it was just so many like little moments that led up to that and changing. And yeah, I guess um,
What do you think was that shift for you? Obviously, you've come out of your second marriage. Was that 2019?
that was we married. Yes, we separated in May 2019.
So what was that shift for you, that because you completely transformed your life, basically your habits, your mindset, your lifestyle, the way that you live. What was that shift for you, do you think? What changed that? Or was it many things that changed it?
It was a lot of little shifts and a couple moments. You have to become. I feel like I had to become so uncomfortable with where I was and what I was doing that I had to walk away. And
Mm-hmm.
how, like, when in case, even still, when I had separated and when I went through my second divorce in May 2019, like on the outside, I still very much looked like a shit show. Like, it still looked like very much like no one had really known, because, nobody sees the transformation sort of happened to you. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe the transformation is what takes time, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
um, and I just couldn't, I every time I would be so done with something, I just would be like, okay, this is just not serving me anymore, and just sort of trying to break through each one of those little things. And I feel like it wasn't one moment, and like it's something you have to continue to keep working towards, and being authentic, because I think, as we live our lives, like, we things can totally change and shift, and what we want
Mm-hmm.
for one reason, maybe it's something that we really thought we wanted to get, because we were hurt, instead of, in a healthy place. Like, maybe we're doing things. I noticed when I had come from my first marriage and walked into my second, I was just in so many ways like reacting to that first one, in the second,
Mm-hmm.
which is I still think fine. Like, people would be like, don't do that. Like, what's the alternative? Staying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I I think it's better to
And
keep
yeah.
moving.
Absolutely. And obviously that's led you to where you are now. And I believe these things do happen to get us to the point. Maybe you needed that second marriage just to sort of fill in the gap before you met the love of your life, and obviously the life that you're living now. So yeah, I think everything happens for a reason. I'd love to hear more about you. You've mentioned a couple of times being authentic and authenticity. Can you talk about what that means for you and how you do that? Because I think that's what people struggle with. We wear the societal mask that everyone wants us, to be and expect us to be. So how do you be authentic and tap into that and who you really are, and just be that person?
I think you have to understand that you can only love people as much as you love yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think it's a long journey to be authentic too. I don't think you can just like switch it on and be like, I'm an authentic person
Mm-hmm.
now.
Yeah.
I think it's really hard in a lot of ways to be authentic too, because, in a lot of ways I had set myself up in the life that wasn't authentic to who I was. It was just sort of like this drive and this pain. Like, I almost had, like, when I was first in business before, and when I was in a young salesperson before, I would have like this, like, I gotta go, 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 go. And this, like, this almost like
Mm-hmm.
competitive, like taking away from me sort of energy that was just like super draining. And I feel
Yeah.
like the more authentic that I become to who I feel like I am, the more that things just sort of, and I don't want to say things sort of work out to make it sound like it's easy, because, like, I think life is just always tough. Like, you're always going to have death and trauma and tragedy and sadness and, curveballs and things from left field and
Mm-hmm.
other things. But it's different when you're in a place where you're not so like, oh my god, my world's falling apart. And then, when you're, I think, in a more authentic place, you can kind of, relax. And honestly, that comes from knowing yourself and getting really quiet. And I think because the answer
Mhm.
isn't flashy, we don't hear it. Um,
Mhm.
because it is just like, what do I want? For my two marriages, I fought about animals. For with both my husbands, I had, well, my first husband, I accumulated all the dogs. My second husband had to deal with them. And I always had five dogs. And I have a cat, and I had five cats at one point. Like, I love animals. Like, I always have. I
Mhm.
would get
You can hear
I got
that? Yeah.
chickens, like the parakeets. So when I made a decision, it was actually in February 2020 when I was like, okay, I'm done with this, and this is what I'm going to focus on instead. I put on there,
Mhm.
I want a man who loves animals like me, and I came to realize that it's okay. People would be like, "Oh my god, why do you want to do this?" And like, I had kind of accepted that energy in my life because that was just what I dealt with. And then I was like, no, like, I'm gonna just I'm gonna there's a ton of men in the world, right? Like,
Mhm.
I'm going to find love again, and the love of my life will be this way because this is what feels right. And I think it was easy for me too because I had been divorced twice, right? So like, I had really clear pictures on, like, I don't like it when this happens, and I don't like it when this happens,
Mhm.
um, and in a lot of ways, I mean, three marriages in 9 years, like, there's a lot of things that can be mistaken for, I find, in my relationships, that like a young me would have been like, oh, I can't believe he's doing this. But like a younger, an older, more mature me is kind of like, oh no, that's just like my perception, you know. Um,
Mhm.
I but I Yeah, you just have to get quiet. Like, I got still and I was like, what does my heart want? Like, what would, if I could just write a story, and how would I feel in a relationship, and how would he speak to me, and how would I know he was kind to me, and how would he listen to me, and how would he react to when I told him what was hurting me, and like, and I just sort of got really clear on how those things felt, and I didn't tolerate anything that wasn't that. And not to say that my husband and Calixto, my husband who's the love of my life, and I are perfect, because we're definitely not. um both of us have don't really have both of our parents are not together, so neither of us know what we're doing. And we talk about that
Mhm.
all the time. We're like, we don't know what
Mhm.
a functional whole marriage looks like up and close, so we kind of have to chart the
Mhm.
waters ourselves. um and I find too that it took me a long time to learn to get quiet because I was just so sad, and a lot of things in my life I had done just to try to feel a little freaking happier and alive. And like, when you drink, it's people are like, oh my god, you just quit drinking, like, but I first had to like walk away from the life that I had to drink to escape
Mhm.
from. Like, I left my husband in May 2018. I didn't quit drinking until March. It took almost a year, but
Mhm.
like, I sort of needed the drinking to like leave him. And then that sounds it can sound so messed up, but like,
Mhm.
what if the end story for him wasn't being married to me either? Because
Mhm.
we weren't,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Like, if I wasn't the love of his life, he wasn't the love of mine. Like, I shouldn't have kept him there anyway. And I sort of parallel that into when I help my like real estate agents, and we're like going through like a hard transaction. Um, like, not every transaction is meant to hit the closing table. 25% of them,
Mhm.
fall through, and sort of like reframing that, like, it's okay if this breaks apart because something else will come together later. Um,
Mhm.
and I think that gets, and like I said, it's not glamorous. It's hard. It's hard to be quiet. It's hard to sit still for five minutes and listen to your word, or listen to your own thoughts, and be like, why am I
Mhm.
doing these things? And I had to realize that a lot of things I had done, that you're kind of a martyr to, like, this is who I am and this is my personality. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's a trauma response. Maybe you are
Mhm.
sort of getting in your own way by allowing these these relationships and things to come around. And
Mhm.
I did think in the beginning of this that the answer was cutting off. And I now see that it's not. It's just boundaries, and it's really hard. I think we have a really hard time with boundaries. And I think that's because we've been raised in a world that's just told us to let them go as long as we're working towards what they want us to do, right?
Mhm.
Like, um, I don't think it should be so crazy to be an entrepreneur. I don't think it should be so crazy for people to quit their job to pursue their passion. I
Mhm.
don't think people should be
Mhm.
so scared to be poor. I mean, do some people have other circumstances? Like, sure, like, this is now
Mhm.
not a judgmental thing for me, but all I'm my husband and I just come from the mindset, because he immigrated from Cuba, that this is the greatest country in the world, and we have an opportunity here. And not to say that it's the only greatest country, but like, I know this country and we know where we live here. So with that being said, why do we have so many people who are working at their regular jobs scared to quit, right? Because like, we've you're getting all these, like, you're getting all these skills and you're getting all these like wonderful things to like go and take, and then it just, I don't know,
Mhm.
it just, it's, I think our authentic, I think it's hard to be authentic too, because we've just been trained to not, you know what I mean? We've been told in school and things to just sort of,
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you need to tick societal boxes, which doesn't always come from within. Therefore, you almost need to adapt and change who you are to fit into the world that we live in and what's expected of you. But and that's why the work that I do is all about tearing that apart, ripping up the societal tick list and tapping into what's in here, because that's what's going to make you feel fulfilled. And then I guess that's where authenticity starts to come through as well. And you obviously talk about your career in real estate, and you were a high achiever. Your career was thriving. So how did that change then? Obviously, the life that you're living now is so much more. Can we say calmer? It's more at you're more at peace. So how does that fit in with the high achieving life career?
it's, it is, it's crazy because it is like a different, you have to remind yourself constantly. And I think in business is so naturally competitive because you have two ways you can look at the world. There's you're either competitive or you're abundant.
Mm-hmm.
You either believe that there's not enough for everybody, or you believe that there's
Mm-hmm.
more than enough and that we can create more. So you kind of have to observe yourself. So I try to observe, like, okay, am I coming from a competitive plane or an abundant plane? And the abundant plane is not rushing. The abundance is not hustle, but the hustle is what we've been taught and preached to, because it does create good workers, right? Like, you want, and hustling isn't bad. It just is in its time. It's
Mm-hmm.
just not a constant all the time too. And especially
Mm-hmm.
like, I think, as women, it is different, just beings, we have a different energy with our, you know, um,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So yeah, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second.
It's okay because you just had a baby, so that's why I was wondering as well. So are you still career focused? You're working on your business because you're a digital creator now as well, but that's quite a new thing. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not really a digital creator. I'm trying. I'm
Yeah.
I'm putting digital files out there. We are, so I own a
Mm-hmm.
real estate business. I've been doing real estate in Colorado for, I'm in my ninth year. I have a team of 10 agents statewide. So I have a small boutique brokerage. And then I have
Mm-hmm.
my daughter. And I keep my daughter with me like all the time. We actually showed up to a closing yesterday, and I walked in with her on my hip because she comes with me, and to me that's normal. To me,
Mm-hmm.
my authentic truth is that families should remain together and work
Yeah.
together as
Yeah.
much as possible.
Love
Are
that.
there times that you need to go your separate ways? For sure. My husband has my daughter on a backpack now, so we can have this conversation. But
Yeah.
for the most part, like, I believe that we shouldn't be separated from our young. So I
Yep.
live a life
I
that
agree.
I'm not separated from our young. And instead of, and
Mm-hmm.
my, it was probably hard to raise me because of this way, but anytime that there was like a rule that was like, we can't do this, I was kind of like, why? Like, this makes the most sense to me.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it's been awesome. Being a mom has
Mm-hmm.
totally shifted too, because right after I had her, I still had these like really intense like goals for myself, and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
that like high achieving ego, I feel like I had to totally finally defeat at the end. Because, man, I was so
Mm-hmm.
hard on myself in the beginning. I was like, you got to scale to like 50 agents, and like, oh my god, a 500% increase in the
Mm-hmm.
winter after I had a baby. Like, why are you holding yourselves to these expectations? Like, what's
Mm-hmm.
what's on the other side? And
Yeah.
yeah, she's just,
And and obviously you sort of diverted away from the norm as well by having a home birth. Can you talk to me about that? Because I have two children who are 9 and 10, and I did it the conventional way, I guess you can say. Whereas if I was to have another, it would be it wouldn't be anything like that. It would be completely different. So I do envy you that you've had a home birth, because I would love to experience that. So can you talk us through? Because I know it wasn't straightforward. You actually had a hemorrhage.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell us about that? And what was the thinking around wanting to have a home birth as well?
I I just kind of knew, like my husband and I, because we talked about having a baby. Well, it was funny because we were like, let's have a baby. And then because we just sort of like live authentically, we were like, oh, let's get married like after we had the baby. So the wedding looked very shotgunny, but that's not what it was. Like that was just the timeline of events. We were like, baby, wedding. Um,
Yeah.
and we were just like, I want to like we already want to be in eating as naturally as we possibly can. We raise our own chickens, we grow our own vegetables, we use natural medicine in any way that we can. So when we conceived, I was really excited to have a home birth, and I sort of wanted to take. I feel like the way you do, the way you do one thing is how you do many things, and once again, I wanted to be away from oppressive big systems. I have a small brokerage because I don't like the oppressive big real estate companies. Um, but whatever. So I it was kind of, it made the most sense to me to be, because I had already lived my life for the last few years authentically, like my heart over everything. Actually, um, when I quit drinking finally in March 2020, I wrote on my whiteboard, my heart over above everything else. And that was like the rule. Like I had to check in with myself, and if I, and make the decisions in the moment based on how I felt. So I was like, oh, great. That's what a conscious pregnancy is. Right. And like a wild birth and sold. So we, we did that, and it was amazing. I would do it again. I will have all my babies at home. I did have I did end up with a retained placenta. So I had a very straightforward birth. I read like 7 or 8 books, a lot of anime and some traditional midwifery books. And it was very normal. It was quick. I had a labor for like 6 hours. Contractions were like 10 minutes, 8 minutes, 6 minutes, 4. But yeah, I'm beating on the walls. I'm screaming. I'm like, oh my God, this is why we should get drugs. Like, oh, what am I doing? I'm a crazy person. Like,
Yeah.
going through the whole thing. You feel like you're going to die. Very true. And then the baby comes, and then you're like, oh my God, your baby's here. And then I went to the toilet, and then I came back to my bed, and the next thing I knew, I had passed out, and my husband was screaming at the ladies to, not screaming, but like yelling, like get her legs up. And I had, for some reason, my body stopped having contractions, and I didn't contract the placenta, and it was like stuck. It was like attached. We found out later because it didn't come out. We had to call an ambulance. At the end, I had lost about 5 units of blood, so I needed a 5 unit blood transfusion and an emergency surgery. And that was like it felt very much like a slap in the face to go from all of that to like, now I'm back here, into this hospital transfer. But almost 9 months later, I'm actually really thankful for that. I think it was really good for me to see, because there is no one way. Like we have to be open to everything, right? Like there isn't, you can't. And I think a lot of times mamas too, and even in like the home birth community, it could be perceived as if, maybe you have done something to deserve your intervention, or if you had had more dates or drank more raspberry tea or done more card pulling with your girlfriends, or I don't know, like you would have not transferred. And that's not true. Like sometimes transfers happen. The medical model is there. Like medicine and modern medicine is a gift and a freaking miracle. Like, oh my goodness, these people are able to give me blood in my body and pull this out. And then like I recovered. I stayed in the hospital 24 hours. Like my body's amazing. The system's amazing. I'm so grateful for it. Because you can believe two things, and we're fighting because we've been told we can't believe two things. And the first chapter of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is that two people can have different opinion and both be right. And that kind of changes things. And I think that helps you too when you're processing with something hard, or things not going your way. Like I can distrust the medical and think that the medical system is more bad than than good on an overall big wide basis, right? But I can also
Mhm.
believe that the people who choose to go to nursing schools and go to these doctor places, while I may disagree on where they're getting their materials and books from, I can also acknowledge those
Mhm.
people have good intentions and do want the best.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Um,
I agree. Mhm. So, what about the future then? Now that you've literally just created this new reality for yourself in the past few years since, since 2019 when things started to change. So, what does the future look like then? What do you want to create in the future? This holistic, lovely, amazing life that you're living?
so I want people to know they can do it too. That's next. We are in the San Luis Valley. We are right between New Mexico. We're about 100 miles north of the border into Colorado. We have a farm. We've expanded our farm operations, and like I said, we believe that we are abundant. We believe abundance is natural, and anybody can do it.
Hmm.
So we are
Yeah.
living in the valley. We are opening up a campsite. We are accepting visitors in 2 weeks, and it's you can come stay at the farm, and if you love it, great, and you want to come enjoy it, come play at the Great National Sand Dunes. Go check out one of the 3 hot springs within 40 minutes of my house, the closest one being 10 minutes away. Um, you can also come see how we have our goats and how we milk the goats and how we raise our vegetables and how we live this sustainable homesteading life. And then you can too, because we obviously have, if you want a dairy goat, I can help you get a dairy
Hmm.
goat and teach you how to do it, because that's what the lady who I bought him
Um,
taught me. Like, it's just, so
mhm.
that's what's next. I want to, my brokerage is still growing all over the state of Colorado. I'm 10 agents strong, and going from there. So I'm going to keep helping my agents, build their businesses that are authentic to their life and how they want to be. Because I don't believe in this traditional capitalist model that we've been taught, that you must slave your life away in order to make money and in order to be a functioning person in society. I believe both can be true. I believe you must work hard to get that, but I believe you can choose who you want to work hard for. And if that's
Mhm.
yourself, this is that's the dream, right? Like, you can do that. Um,
Yeah. And I think people will be so interested in the work that you're doing. Well, I call it work. It's a lifestyle, isn't it? And providing for yourself. It's being self-sufficient, which we're not taught. We're taught to rely on a system. We're taught to rely on handing money over for food rather than growing organically food for ourselves, which is much obviously so much healthier for us. And yeah, so I just feel like we're starting very. I'm noticing the shift. We're gradually getting to that place where I feel like maybe a couple of generations down, people will be starting to live more organically again. It's almost like we went backwards for so long and now we're starting to go the other way, which people like yourself, there's thankfully more and more people living this type of lifestyle and it's having a knock-on effect. And you just inviting people in so that they can learn from you as well is exactly what we need. So yeah, it's amazing, Megan, what you're doing, and I'm excited that currently in Texas. So whereas when we last spoke, I was in Scotland. So nice to know you're not too far this time.
right? Yes. Just drive up
Yeah,
north a little bit and come
yeah,
see.
yeah, yeah. And what about for you? Like you're obviously doing all this work for other people. You've just had a baby. Is there anything just for you that you're longing for the future?
hmm. I I would love to have I would love to have and I don't want to call it like a redemptive home birth, because I don't feel like I don't need to be redeemed from my first one. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I do want to have a home birth that stays at home. That is,
Yeah.
um, that's what I would really love. And I don't know when that's going to happen. I'm not pregnant. But
Mm-hmm.
that's something that but I'm thankful because I'm patient. So often in my life, I feel like I've been really impatient for the things that I want
Yeah.
and the blessings. But this time, I'm just going to enjoy the road to get there, um,
Mm-hmm.
and just know
Yeah.
that it's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it will. You've got that vision for the future. So definitely more kids on the cards then.
Yes, absolutely. I think, I mean, kids are. kids are great, and I think, I mean, becoming a parent has only helped me become a better leader, more empathetic and in tune with my agents, more able to handle difficult situation with clients. Like I kids are superpower to me. Like I don't um
Mhm.
that's another that's probably the final belief I don't quite believe in is you know, have
Mhm.
as many kids as you want. Nobody should have an opinion on that. If you want to have one and that you're fine, great, you know, whatever. But um,
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
um, yeah, I just I want to get the message out that like I said, that you can do it too. That
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm just trying to create something, um, you know, consistent. You know, while my agents are while we work together every week and focus on their, you know, growing their businesses, that's
Mhm.
something that I'm trying to get better at doing as well. And like I
Mhm.
said, I think the message, and I think people enjoy the animals. I know I enjoy the animals. Like when I go out there in the morning and I'm like, can see the the horizon, the sand dunes, the goats, and I hear the birds, and like it's awesome. So
Sounds bliss.
yes, I'm hoping that, you know, I'll just get a little bit better
Yeah,
every day.
so it's a, yeah, and that's all you can do. So yeah, digital creating to get your message out there. Um, Amazing. So obviously we'll put links in the description for people to get in touch with you and check out the work that you're doing. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing and being vulnerable and being authentic.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I look forward to following your journey and seeing where it goes as well.
Yes, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Spirit, Mind and Soul podcast and Megan's story today. All details on how to contact Megan are in the description below. If you haven't subscribed already, you can do so and you'll be notified when future episodes come out. If you want to keep up to date with me, you can visit iamkarenleigh.com. All of my services and free resources are all in one place at iamkarenleigh.com. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.